Hello, and welcome to Off the Record Live. Here we are in Nashville, Tennessee for our very first American Songwriter live stream on Twitch. We're here, and joining us is Ashland Craft.
Thank y'all for having me.
Hello,
First one ever.
That's
I'm honored.
Right.
I'm honored.
Yes, you're helping us kick off a whole new era of American Songwriters' online footprint. And we're so happy to have you here, especially since you just kicked off a whole new era of your career with your debut full-length, Traveling Kind, that came out last Friday, right?
Yes, last Friday. It feels like yesterday, but it's still fresh. I'm excited to hear what everybody thinks about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're so glad to have you here. I loved your album. I felt like listening to it, it was like the perfect combination of a really crisp and really like intentional modern kind of country sound that was like so relevant, and you kind of have all these like genre bending things there, but it still has that really classic spirit to it. And obviously just your personality illuminates the tracks like intensely. It's palpable. It's really cool. And so
thank you.
So glad to be picking your brain on it.
Yes, I'm excited. I love talking about this stuff and digging deep, so.
Cool. Well, I want to start with getting a bit of like the backstory on the record. And to do that, I actually want to start with when you moved to Nashville, which was in 2019. You were a few years out of The Voice at that point. What was your kind of like headspace like when you were coming to Nashville? I mean, you were coming here, you were gonna like make your first like full length. Was that already in your head when you were moving here? What was that all like?
Well, I knew my whole life, obviously, I wanted to do my very first record, but moving to Nashville initially was for me just all about getting here, getting songs under my belt, because I wasn't really big into songwriting. I dabbled in it when I was younger, but I knew that if I was going to actually do this and want to be good at it, I would need to be where all the pros are. So I moved here and I got involved with 50 Ed Music, which is my publishing company, and that's where I really started diving into writing and trying to figure out exactly who I was. So I think that was probably the biggest key in moving here, was finding myself, figuring out who that was, and presenting that to everybody else.
Oh my gosh, yeah, wow. And so when you got into town, tell us a little bit about like who were you like writing with, like in the early days, or like even like Traveling Kind, did that kind of start like immediately at the end of 2019? Were you like already working on the tracks that would eventually become this record?
So Traveling Kind was actually one of the first of the bunch of this whole record. And it kind of was that pinpoint moment for myself after me and Eric Dillon wrote it. He was one of the very first people that I got to write with in Nashville, along with Jonathan Singleton, Rob Snyder, Ray Fulcher, some of the best, and I was completely beside myself to even have that opportunity. So when we wrote Traveling Kind, it was like this pivotal moment for me, because it seemed like this song that after we wrote it, it was just like the stamp on who I was. And I knew that that was going to be a very pivotal song for me. So I think after we finished writing, or I say finished, but as we continued writing, because you're never finished writing. But as we continued, all of the songs kind of felt like they just lended a hand to Traveling Kind and who I was in the moment, and who I had been for quite some time now, and who I felt like I would be for years to come in this crazy experience. So that was really, again, kind of the focus moment after we wrote that song, and trying to figure out how we could complement that song.
Whoa, yeah, absolutely, wow. Well, we're talking about you moving to Nashville in 2019 and kind of like the beginning of this record, but obviously it's 2021 and a lot happened in between there. What was your pandemic experience like? When did it kind of like start for you? Like when did you kind of be like, oh gosh, this is like real?
It was so interesting because it all kind of happened so quickly. Like when I moved to Nashville, like it was 2019, I was writing, and then 2020 hit. And I'm still, even to this day, like, what year is it? But 2020 hit, and honestly, I don't really think I knew how to take it at first, because I just signed my record deal. I just released a single, and the pandemic hit, and we were not able to do anything. And so that kind of put my whole world, to speak, on halt for a minute. And so I really just honed in on trying to write as much as I could and take those emotions that I felt from the pandemic and tried to put those into words and try to make something more positive out of it, because I knew in the back of my head, I felt like there would be a lot of great music from everyone after this whole pandemic was over. I felt like everybody was going to pour their souls into writing the best music possible, and I think that's what we all tried to really do. So I feel like a lot of great music came out of it, for sure.
Yeah, wow. Well, hearing you talk about that, I'm so curious now, too, because you're mentioning how when you moved to Nashville, that was kind of the first time that you were going to really take a dive and kind of focus on songwriting and like really kind of get into that craft. And then obviously having something like a global pandemic that like forces you to stay at home for like a year and just have time to write, I gotta imagine this be like really perspective changing as an artist. And then learning kind of like your like voice as like a writer during that time too. Did you feel like at the end of it, looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, I grew in a way that like I never thought I'd be able to? Or yeah, what was that kind of
Absolutely. I think it was first overcoming, all of the negative that came along with that whole experience. The whole pandemic, we were all separated from each other and literally quarantined to ourselves. So I think it was overcoming those kinds of emotions. And then after I feel like we all kind of got over the fact that we would have to write through Zoom for a while, because none of us wanted to. We were all like, not Zoom. Because I feel like the whole songwriting process is really about being in person and feeling each other's vibes and filling out the song along the way. And it's almost a little bit more interesting with a computer screen in front of you, because it kind of takes that whole human element away. So that was another obstacle, but through that, we wrote Mimosas in the Morning with Jonathan Singleton and Jesse Joe Dillon over Zoom. And I remember that being just a beautiful day where we were all on the computer. I was writing outside, and it just turned out to be this awesome song. And then Come Down was another great song off the record that came from the pandemic, which I was really happy about. That one's a little more poetic in a sense. So I felt like that whole experience really helped us tap into all those kind of hidden things under the surface that we kind of needed pulled out of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Were you writing alone at all during that time?
It was a goal, but I really think where I was at in the whole songwriting process and knowing that I wanted to get a project out there, I think my biggest focus was trying to stay connected with people and writing with other people. I didn't necessarily get to write on my own, but I think I've kind of shied away from that since I was younger, but now I'm hoping that after we've all kind of gotten to write a lot more, that maybe I'll start dialing into that again.
Yeah. Well, that's also another thing that's pretty interesting. I mean, you're talking about how even like over the Zoom stuff, you guys were able to kind of write songs, and then even through just the process of collaborating, you were able to kind of like reach something that maybe one of you wouldn't have been able to on your own. Even like you said, kind of digging into some of the experience,
right,
and just like getting pulled out of your own head in writing. And so that's got to be like a really great thing about co-writing, is that you're able to kind of like bounce those ideas and maybe find something in someone else.
Yes, I think it's very therapeutic to have other people in the room to bounce ideas off of. Is also very, I think, just helpful mentally. Just, we all are our own worst critics, in my opinion. I feel like we all kind of would agree with that, but I think it's nice to have somebody there who sees it a little bit differently than you and can, like you said, pull you out of that headspace and give you a little bit different perspective than maybe you didn't have before, which I'm very guilty of, getting stuck on one thing and I can't see outside of that for the time being. And somebody else in the room will be like, it's as simple as this. Like, don't overthink it. We're overthinking right now. Go back to the basics. And it genuinely turns out to be something, a very small hurdle that we just kind of put ourselves in the middle of. And again, having those people there that see that that's happening and can tell you to relax and take it one step at a time, it's helpful.
Yeah, well, and that's got to be one of the great things about Nashville, too.
Yes.
Just like the best city to meet people like that, huh?
Yeah, it's like everybody lives and breathes songwriting and music here, so if you're going to go anywhere to do it, this is the place.
That's right. Oh my gosh, wow. Well, I want to ask about a few of the folks that you collaborated with on this record, and I want to start with Jonathan Singleton, who produced it. Yeah, tell us, what was it like working with him? How did he first get involved? What was the process like? Jonathan
is a saint. I have to start off by saying that.
You're a saint, Jonathan, if you're watching out there.
One of the very first people I ever met in Nashville. I met him through Bradley Jordan with Peachtree Entertainment, who is actually who I met when I was working back home in South Carolina. So it was like this chain link effect. But he was like, I have this guy I want you to meet that I feel like is going to be perfect for you and what you're wanting to do. And sure enough, I met Jonathan. Didn't know that he had written all these amazing radio hits that turned out were some of my favorite songs growing up. So I had learned a whole lot within the first couple of months of meeting him, but he's a great mentor when it comes to songwriting, and he clearly knows what he's doing. And he's one of those people that I feel like sees things in a little bit simpler perspective when you get stuck in your head. And I really enjoy writing with him. He always has these crazy ideas, but the best ones. And I don't know, he just always keeps the right driving. And him producing my record was a dream come true, because I'd heard so much stuff that he had done in the past, and I think I was just desperate for a record that was a little bit more on the organic side and wasn't necessarily perfect to a T. I wanted there to be like little imperfections that maybe you hear live. I wanted it to feel as close to live as possible without sounding completely raw, you know? So he took all of these things and just pieced it together in this magical dream first record.
Oh yeah, wow, okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I know that we are live, but if you have like any like idea in your head or like a story of maybe when he did suggest something that sounded a little crazy or out there, or maybe you were like, I don't know, and then you tried it and it worked?
Oh man, it feels like it's been so long ago, but honestly, I can't really think of a time specifically as of right now. I'm so bad at like in the moment guessing. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's always willing to try new things, go outside of the box. And one of the things I love about working with him is he's very much a component of letting me be hands-on, because that is one of my passions with production, is creating the music itself. So I know that's not necessarily crazy, but I mean, I guess it would be for some to hear a producer letting an artist, you know, give input on stuff. So I don't know. He's very he trusts me a lot, and I trust him a lot. And when we go into the room, it's just all these ideas being thrown around and floated around until we find that perfect one that sticks, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really cool to hear you say, because I mean, even talking about, I think at the top I mentioned that some of the notes I took about this record is that it seems like your personality really filled it up so much. So it's so cool to hear that that was kind of like, we want to get Ashland's personality in there, or personality, yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me, is capturing, I don't know, the best way I can explain it, and I explain it like this to people, it's the most simple way for me, is like, when you have a conversation, you don't, you know, speak in a monotone voice like this to people. It'd be like we're robots, you know? So I feel like music should convey that. It should convey all those dynamics and the ups and the downs, the little blips of your voice that it weren't necessarily perfect, but it's you. You know, it's the characteristics that make you you. So it was a number one thing for me to capture all of that within this music and not have it be so tuned out to where you can't tell it's me, or you know, you can't hear all the different things in it. So we try to keep it as organic as possible and keep all those fun personality things in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, I want to ask about that too. I'm curious hearing you say, you're talking about how you really wanted it to have that kind of like almost live kind of sound. Mm-hmm. Did that come from just like your live set and how much you enjoy it, or like artists that you're inspired by?
I think a lot of it, there's so many different factors for me. 90s country music, or 90s music to early 2000s in general, it wasn't completely perfect in my opinion. You know, it was very, I don't want to say completely raw in a sense, but it was raw to a point. You know, you did still hear those characteristics in everybody. And I think as time has progressed, we've gotten a lot more into like, you know, tuning and fine tuning everything and really making sure it's got the sparkle on top of it. And for me as a person, as a musician, I'm very imperfect. I love the imperfect parts of life, of music, of everything, because it's just human nature. It's what we are. And I wanted the music that I produced or that I put out to make it very clear that I didn't want to be this crystal clear, perfect person. Like, I wanted to obviously be transparent, but I didn't want to make it out like I'm just shiny on top. You know, I wanted there to be the dirt and the grit and all the imperfections that make us human and who we are. So
yeah, well, like you said, nothing is perfect, and so that's so
Right.
cool that you're able to kind of express that in your music.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Well, I want to ask about a few individual songs.
Cool.
I kind of get a little story back here, and I want to start with "Day by Day" because this was written by some fellow Voice alums, Tori Allen and Corey Grogan.
Yes. Two of my very best friends.
How did it come to be? How did this song kind of like come around?
Oh man, so this is one of those stories that has a lot of branches to it, but
Yes.
I'll try to keep it pretty short. I met Corey and Tori. They were actually in a duo together, and we were all in the audition process for The Voice in 2017, season 13. And this was not on TV yet, so this is when we were all still kind of getting to know each other, and I met these girls during the audition process, and we all hit it off and became very good friends. And they were based in Nashville at the time, and I was still in South Carolina. And so they were, during the time, trying to convince me to move to Nashville. They were like, you have to be there. And I barely know these girls, but I'm like, oh, we're already best friends. So I moved to Nashville in 2019, and we're still very great friends, obviously, at this time. And I believe we were at a writer's retreat or something along the lines of that, where we were all just sitting around, hanging out. And Tori, who's also, she's a solo artist now and has her own great music, but she had written the song with Tori 6 years ago, or I'm sorry, with Corey 6 years ago. It's like all intertwined. And so they had written the song forever ago, and I heard it one night when we were sitting around, and I had just fell in love with it. For whatever reason, I could not get it out of my head. And I think it was one of the biggest reasons is because for me as a person, every day I'm like, take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And so the title Day by Day just in itself stuck out to me. So after weeks of not being able to get the song out of my head, I text Corey and Tori, and I was like, I don't know what y'all are planning to do with this song, but you know, if it's up for grabs, I would love to take a shot at it. So they decided to let me cut it, thankfully, and here we are after them writing it 6 years ago. It's like three best friends all getting to celebrate this song that kind of made a full circle come around to our friendship and to my life. And I think lyrically, even though it's about a breakup and trying to get through that, I feel like it just speaks to life in general about, like I said, getting through everything just one step at a time and taking it easy and just trying to get through life, you know?
Yeah, that is holistic.
Yes, absolutely.
A holistic song. Oh my gosh, wow, it's so cool. And it's so cool too that you're able to have that whole journey and have your friends involved.
Yes, it makes it that much more special to have those connections to the song and then see it come to life in a different way.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, well, I want to ask about another one of your friends who helped you Make It Past Georgia, Willie Morris.
Yes.
When I was doing research for this story, it said that you met Willie because Willie was your Lyft driver.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? That's like the coolest little like Nashville story I've ever heard. What is the story? I'm dying to know what it is.
Yeah, so he was actually, I feel like Lyft and Uber are the same thing, pretty much, all service car companies. But we were visiting Nashville for the first time, me and two of the guys in my band. And I was just starting to visit to try to write for the first time with other people. And I just had my first co-write in Nashville. I think this was a day or two after. We were at Guitar Center picking up some stuff for our little gig that we had at Old Red downtown. And Willie was the Uber driver that was picking us up. And in true Nashville fashion, we all started talking about music and told him how I was visiting for the first time. And he was like, well, you know, before you leave, you should come write with us, or come write with me. And I was like, okay, you know, I've never done this but one time, so might as well squeeze another one in while I'm in Nashville before we leave. And we ended up writing, and we wrote In Between, which was the first single that I had released, I think, once I moved to Nashville. So it just created this insane friendship from Uber. Thank you, Uber, for hooking me up with one of my best friends. And we've written so many fun songs together, so many heartfelt songs together. He's actually how I met Lee Starr, who is the other co-writer on the record as well. But yeah, they're just two of my very best friends, two of my most trusted writers. I take my craziest ideas to them just because I'm so open with them, and they just have no boundaries. We get in the room and we write whatever the song wants to write. So it's always a fun time for all three of us to get in room.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's so cool. And yeah, that's just like one of those stories. I mean,
we talk about it all the time. I will never let him live that down, so.
Yeah, something as small as just another driver picking you up.
Right.
It would have been a totally different, wow,
Here we are,
butterfly
2.5,
effect.
3 years later,
Oh my
still
gosh.
best friends.
So if you're out there driving Uber,
Shoot your shot.
You could be picking up Ashland Craft. You don't even know. Oh my gosh, wow.
Mingle.
Well, another one I want to ask about is Highway Like Me, which obviously has Marcus King on it. We love Marcus King. What was it like getting to work with him?
Marcus is freaking awesome. I'd heard his name. We both grew up in South Carolina, very close to each other. He went to the high school that was my rival high school.
No way.
Yeah, did not know that until we got in the studio to track the song.
Did that cause like tension?
No, not at all. We both felt like we were back home with two friends from the Carolinas shooting the crap and, you know, just being us. And we got to catch up on so many different stories of back home. And I don't know, it was just like a reunion of two people that had never met, but kind of had the same sole purpose and came from the same place and had the same goals. And like I said, I'd heard his name in the music circuit when I was still living in South Carolina. So obviously he was a huge idol for me. And so I could not have thought of anybody better to feature on this song because I wanted somebody with soul and with just conviction in their voice. You know, I wanted it to be somebody that could really tell the story. So Marcus was top of the list for me, and I'm so grateful that he was willing to feature on this song because he just brought a whole new life to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right, too, the way y'all's voices, too. I mean, they complement each other so well stylistically.
Thank you.
It's just a cool, even when I saw it on the track listing, I was like,
man,
this is so good.
It was a surreal moment for me, for sure, to see his name on the track list and be like, yeah, I did that. We got Marcus King.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Dream first feature, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, in anticipation of this live streaming event, we went ahead and asked some of our readers for questions for you.
Oh, I'm excited.
And we have some questions.
Okay.
I'm going to read the first one right now. Oh. What inspired you to audition for The Voice? How'd that kind of come to be?
I feel like that one's pretty easy. I'd watched The Voice growing up. I grew up in Piedmont, South Carolina, small town, about 5,000 people. It's a very industrial town, manufacturing, all that stuff. So definitely not a place for the music scene, to say the least. I worked at a bar called Wendell's Dip and Branch for 2 years, singing in the house band there. And I think that was just kind of like my cap moment in South Carolina. You know, I couldn't really think of any other way to get forward and get moving in a small town. So I thought maybe, well, we'll give The Voice a shot because it's a platform, you know, it's a national platform, and it just seemed like so much fun watching the show and getting to do all that stuff. So I'd actually tried out 3 different times, and
really?
I feel like I miss out on telling this, but I tried out 3 different times. I was 16, 17, and then I tried out again when I was 19 after I just finished hair school, 19 or 20 years old. And I sent in a video submission actually the 3rd time, not thinking they would see it. I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna send it, see what happens. And they sent me a callback form that night asking if I could come to Nashville and do a private audition. And so it took 3 different times before I actually even made it onto the show. But yeah, my biggest goal and driving factor was just to get there and put myself out there in any way that I could, and that way I could maybe gain a little traction and try to take this music career a little bit further.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely.
It was like the big next step in my life.
Totally, and if you're out there watching and you've auditioned for The Voice twice, you try the third time. You never know. Oh my gosh, wow.
You just gotta go for it. I always encourage people to never get discouraged with that, because it's a TV show and that's one of many avenues that I feel like people can take to get here or just get the music industry in general.
Oh yeah, well I imagine too it had to have been a really positive learning experience. I mean, getting to perform on that kind of stage and working with the people you worked with like Miley.
For sure.
Do you feel like you're still kind of carrying like the lessons that you got from that time with you?
Absolutely, I think that was my first big step into the production world, cameras, lights, all that stuff. So that was probably my biggest takeaway that I still to this day has done me a lot of good, is the whole what is it called, the questioning process or the interview process, what we're doing right now.
Interviews.
But that really helped set me up, I think, for success in the future with interviews and knowing how to, I guess, carry myself and speak and respond to a question. And also, I think just being put out there on stage in front of four very high profile people, it was a lot of pressure. And it's funny, I think that was more pressure than the cameras and the people watching. So I don't know, it put a lot of good pressure on me to kind of grow and adapt and overcome. And it also gave me a lot of experience with Miley. I think the thing that I took away from her the most was being confident in myself and really going at it full force. Like, if you're gonna do something, just go for it. You know, don't hesitate, don't think about it, believe in yourself, and see where that carries you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, saying that you like learned confidence from Miley is like, I learned how to paint from Leonardo da Vinci.
It was really
amazing.
cool. It was really cool because she's so close in age to, I guess to I am, and I felt like that was going to be a good thing for me to learn from somebody that had been through all of this stuff at such a young age and kind of knew how to navigate the waters a little bit. So
yeah,
thanks, Miley.
Miley, if you're watching,
I love you.
You're great. Wow. All right, we got another question here from the watchers. Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Interesting. I wouldn't say there's anything specific. I definitely like my quiet time right before shows. I think it kind of gets me centered, and I have really bad anxiety when it comes to shows and life in general, but I feel like it's a good anxiety. It's like the kind that you're wanting to do good and you're wanting to put on a great performance. So I think that quiet time is just me kind of letting go of all the outside factors and focusing in on what I'm about to do and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to give the best performance possible. So we have our group huddle up, which we say you want some, which is an inside joke. You want some. But anybody who follows us on social media, they've probably seen it pop up. But yeah, we just have our little group huddle session and we hype each other up. And I don't know, our live shows are very high energy. So we try to get in that headspace before.
Yeah. Do you have any post-show rituals?
Not necessarily. I think just naturally we all talk about how the show went and if there's anything that we could have done to improve or anything that we liked that we did. And I think that kind of feedback moment is really helpful for us for next shows to come. And I don't know, I think I'm always big on feedback and talking about it, and obviously not ruining the moment. If we have a great show, like we obviously talk about, you know, that show was great, let's keep doing that. So yeah, I think that's really, I guess, the only rituals that we have right now.
That's awesome. Well, we got a really fantastic question here. How's your dog, Dolly?
Oh, my Dolly girl. That's like my immediate voice when I hear it.
Is it the name from Dolly Parton, I assume?
Yes and no. Like, I think ultimately I loved country music, obviously, and I just wanted to give her like a diva name, and I guess Dolly is a diva, but in the best way. So my dog is definitely a diva, but she's the best dog ever. She's good. She's with my parents right now in South Carolina while we're on tour, so I miss her like crap all the time. Like, literally my best friend. I have got a tattoo of her because that's how much separation anxiety I get from her. I just look at it and makes me feel a little bit better. So she's doing well. I get picture updates from my parents, and I'm going to try to go home soon and visit them. So fingers crossed, but she's doing good.
That's great.
Thanks for asking.
Well, Dolly, if you're watching, you're great.
I miss you so much.
Oh my gosh, that's cool too. It's kind of like, like a Kleenex thing, where like not all tissues are Kleenexes, not all Dollies have to be Dolly Parton.
Right.
They can all be as strong and powerful as Dolly Parton.
Yes, the name felt fitting for that reason. So
wow.
I think it fits.
All right. And here we got a new question from chat. Do you have any songs recorded by other people that you're especially proud of?
Not currently. I haven't really gotten to the process of pitching my songs yet. I think we were just kind of keeping them all in one place until we kind of saw what happened and which ones we wanted to cut, which ones we wanted to pitch. Or I guess I should use real terms. Cutting means, you know, the artist is going to do the song, and pitching means they're going to try to give it to somebody else to sing. So as of right now, all of my songs are personal cuts, but I do have some hopefully on hold. Fingers crossed. I don't want to speak too soon, but very special ones on hold. So we're going to see how that goes and see if anything comes out of it. But the song that is on hold, it's a very special song, and I'm excited to see if it gets cut. So we'll see.
Wow. Well, if you're a recording country artist, there's so many options for people who are watching this.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, here's a fun one. Talking about moving to Nashville, living in Nashville. What are some of your favorite restaurants in Nashville?
Interesting. Well, I won't lie. I haven't really got to experience Nashville as much as I thought I would when I first moved here, but thankfully I've been really busy. Let's see. I'm always a sucker for a good sushi restaurant.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any ones like that have just really stuck with me. I haven't tried Hattie B's yet, which is like the hype around town. So maybe I need to try that. Maybe it'll be my new favorite. But yeah, your girl's living on fast food right now for the most part. Traveling kind.
Hey, yeah, there you go. Oh my gosh. She's living it.
Keep everybody updated as I find restaurants that are favorites of mine for sure, because I'm a big foodie. I love food. Food makes me happy. So I'm definitely on the hunt for good Nashville restaurants.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Well, I'm going to be following that story intensely.
A thread.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, I think we're wrapping up here, and I want to ask about just a few kind of like closing things. And one is that I know that you're on tour with Zac Brown Band, you're playing shows again. What's that kind of been like to be back, and especially now that the record's out after this past Friday? How does everything feel?
My soul is being revived is the best way I know how to describe it. The Zac Brown Band tour was very last minute, unexpected. Thankfully, I'm so happy it kind of popped up because we weren't really sure what the live scene was going to be like or if people were touring. So when we got that offer and we accepted, we were just beside ourselves and trying to prepare and get ready to go back to playing live music. And we didn't know what that was going to look like. But fortunately, it's been it's been safe, thank God, but it's also just felt a little bit normal again. And I think thankfully everybody's taking the right precautions to keep everything moving and everything going and everybody healthy, but we're also having a blast out there and living our best lives. Zac's team has been nothing short of amazing, and we've already learned so much being out there with them. So I've got to perform a song with him on stage, and that was just kind of one of the highlights of the tour so far. So having this record out and being able to be on tour and share it with people to brand new audiences and faces that we've never met before is just my ultimate passion. My love is live music, and I think if that's what I could do all the time, I would. So being out, playing live music is just a blessing, and I'm thankful to them for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, Ashland, we're so thankful to be having you here.
Thank y'all.
On our first Off the Record live.
First one.
That's right. This was the very first one. We're going to be doing more. There's also going to be a lot of other fun things coming from American Songwriter, like The Grind and Linda Perry's show. All sorts of great things coming. Ashland, thank you so much for stepping by and speaking with us. It's been such a delight.
Thank y'all for letting me be your first kickoff to this whole thing.
Yes,
really
absolutely. This was.
I'm glad we got to dive deep today.
Yes, we got to talk about Dolly. We got to talk about your music. We got
everything. Checked them all off the list.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been such a joy. I'm Vito for American Songwriter. It's Ashland Craft.
Ashland Craft. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.